Okay, so we're continuing Tehilim. Tonight we'll do 4 small chapters. Chapter 127 through 130. You will find different types of ideas and concepts in these chapters. Some of them perhaps you recall from the past. Nonetheless, he repeats them because sometimes he talks to the Jewish people as a whole, and sometimes he's relating this information to individuals, people who may go through all kinds of troubles in their life, or the Jewish nation as a whole. In looking back in time, as we get closer to Mashiach, we will be able to understand, we will have greater clarity as to why certain things happened with us. So he reviews some of these points in these chapters. What I like to say is that these chapters contain a lot of hashkafa. Hashkafa means the proper outlook, the Jewish perspective of what certain things mean. You see, what happens when you see a movie, you don't always understand how it's going to end. Especially if you came in the middle, you definitely have no clue what is going on. We have the script to the movie. Life is a movie. The world is a movie. It's a long movie. And unless you have access to the script, you have no clue what's going on. There's many things happening in the world today. And people are upset. People are perhaps unsure what's going to be next, what's going to happen. You have people who are optimistic, you have people who are pessimistic, there are people who argue perhaps we should move to another place. The economy is in ruins, all kinds of ideas and views that are expressed by people. But does anyone know for sure what's going to be? No, unless you have access to the script. The script is the Torah, and a lot of that script is in Tehilim as well. And that is why Tehilim is so beautiful, so important, because it not only describes to us a little bit of what's going on, how David HaMelech foresaw. He was divinely inspired after all. He foresaw many of the things that are going to happen years after. And he shares this therefore with his children, his descendants, with those who will be in exile. Remember, he's not in exile. He's in Israel. The temple is about to be built, the first one. So there's going to be a first temple, a second temple. They're both unfortunately going to be destroyed. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. The Jewish people are going to be going through a lot during these years of exile. So therefore, it's important. It's really, really important to keep in mind that what he says applies to our generation as well, not just to his time. In chapter 127, there's a discussion whether he said it to Shlomo, whether these are the words that were said by Shlomo, by Solomon, or whether they were said for Solomon, by his father David. The Segula for 127, the special power, is for protection on a young boy from the time that he was born. You know, there are certain amulets that they would hang either at the home or on a child who was susceptible perhaps to all kinds of illnesses. This is a Shemirah. This particular chapter is a chapter of protection. Shir HaMa'alot L'Shlomo Im Adonai Lo Yivneh Bayit Shav Amlu Bonav Bo Im Adonai Lo Yishmor Ir Shav Shakad Shomer. It's a beautiful verse, a song of ascents for Solomon. If Hashem does not build a house, then its builders are going to labor upon it in vain. I'm going to first translate it and I'll explain. And the same is true if Hashem will not guard a city, then the vigilance or the protection of its watchmen is in vain. What is it telling us? That if Hashem is not involved, then you can forget about a real protection. The human being may be very strong, he may be very experienced, knowledgeable, but if Hashem is not in the picture, then there's no guarantee that any of that will help. Now here we're talking about a bayit, a house. So even though the house that he's referring to is the Bet HaMikdash, if Hashem is not involved, if Hashem does not want it to stand, it will not. It also refers to any home. If Hashem, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is not introduced into the home, then it may not last. That beautiful edifice that we are building, a home, can fall apart easily. How does it fall apart? One of the things that brings down a home is anger. Rabbis tell us if there is always anger in the home, anger brings fire. A fire can consume such a home. And there have been many stories of homes that have burned down. I'm not saying they all burned down because of anger, but it's not a good sign if a house burns down, God forbid. A city can burn down. We've seen it, we've heard it. All the time it's in the news. We're not in the position to try to figure it out, but there are some indicators in our sources why these things happen. Lives are lost. It's not just material wealth, which is more easily replaceable. Sometimes lives are lost. So if Hashem is not involved, Shav Amlu Bonava, the laborers, the builders, are going to labor upon it in vain. In other words, they cannot accomplish so much. No matter what you do to protect a home, it will not be sufficient if Hashem does not want that home to last. He's already telling us over here a very important point in Jewish hashkafa, the Jewish perspective, and that is called hishtadlut. Hishtadlut in Judaism means that we all need to make an effort. Effort, of course, but will the effort bring results? Not necessarily. We can do our best, but whether we succeed or not depends on Hashem. We need to remember that. The same is true with the protection of an entire city. If Hashem is not involved, we're still supposed to protect. We still are supposed to have guards. You could have locks and all that. But if Hashem is not involved, then none of that will help. Since we're also talking about a home, not just a city, it's therefore important to bring Hashem's divine presence into that home through Kedusha, by sanctifying the home. When a home is sanctified, then there is a better chance that that sanctity of the home will protect the house. As I mentioned another time with the mezuzot. The mezuzot on the door serve as a protection to this home. The same thing with any acts of Kedusha, of holiness, that are performed in this home. You have guests over, you feed the poor. All of these are acts of kindness, acts that create angels, as the Kabbalah explains. And these are angels that protect. They protect one when he's on the road, and they will protect his home as well. So this just gives us a little bit of an idea of, don't assume that all your efforts will guarantee that what you just did, what you just built will last. If Hashem is not involved in the picture, then there's no such guarantee. This is also true for entire cities. There could be a tremendous tornado that has leveled many buildings, hurricanes, and now we're hearing about floods all over the world, major floods, besides wildfires, affecting large areas, not just one home, but large areas. Apparently the protection is down. Somehow Hashem is not there. When Hashem removes himself, then all kinds of things can happen. There's a story about a gentleman who passed away. He was a part of a community, and he came in a dream to someone in that community. He says, as long as I was alive, I used to say Tehilim every day. And my Tehilim was very, very valuable in the heavens. He protected the city. Now that I'm no longer alive, you guys better do something to get that protection back, because who knows what may happen if you don't have that protection. So one individual saying Tehilim on a regular basis, obviously he must have been a righteous individual, he must have been a good person, and his dedication to saying Tehilim with kavanah, with intent, made a difference. Pasuk Bet. Before actually we go to Pasuk Bet, since we spoke about a binyan, let's not forget, and we're going to see that soon, that one of the more important structures that we build are the children. So husband and wife, they build a home that's very, very nice. But what goes on in the home? Hopefully there will be children in that home. The children need to be built up as well. That is what we really care about the most. It's not so important how large a home is, or whether you have a modern kitchen, or what kind of an oven or stove you have. These things are not that important. The real structure of this home is the children. What kind of an education they will receive, what kind of an example they will see in their parents. That is how one builds his home, by imparting on the children the right values, the right hashkafot. פסוק ב' שב לכם משכימי קום מאחרי שבט אוכלי לחם העצבים כן ייתן לידידו שינה. Even if you know perfect Hebrew, this verse is a little bit challenging, let's say. But since we're talking about hishtadlut, we're talking about effort, then it of course makes a lot of sense. In this verse, I'll first translate it. The word shav appears again. Shav means in vain. It is in vain for you who rise early, who sit up late, and all this time, in other words, you're working so hard, you get up early, you go to sleep late, you eat bread of tension. You're never happy, you're never calm, you're always busy, working, trying to make a living. He started off this verse by saying it's all in vain. What do you mean in vain? People need to work. He's talking about people who overdo it. They work 12, 13 hours a day. What for? Do you know that you can make a living working 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day? It is possible. Don't think that your extra hishtadlut, your extra efforts of working so many hours and not giving that time for your family will make the difference in the bottom line. In other words, that you will have a larger income because of that. Because even if you do bring in more money, all of that is lechem atzabim. You're eating your bread with tension. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not smooth. Now, some people, of course, have to travel long distances to get to work. And that takes time. They gotta go up early. They come home late. That may not be the best job for them. I know someone who's not Jewish, who gave up a promotion, an advancement in his job, where he would have made, I think it was $10,000 more a year, or even more, just so that he could be closer to his home. They offered him that promotion on condition that he would travel further, go to another office. He says, I give up this promotion. I want to be closer to my home so I can spend more time with my kids. I don't want to come home when they're asleep. I want to see them. Otherwise, it's going to be lechem atzabim. It's going to be a bread of pain, of tension. Ken yiten lidido shina. For in fact, he gives his loved ones sleep. In other words, Hashem does give those who he loves sleep. Those who follow his word, those who observe his mitzvot, to them he will give sleep. They will have a life that perhaps will not earn so much money, but at least it will be calm. At least they will be able to enjoy what they're doing. And there is such a blessing. It's a special blessing that we say sometimes, that we ask Hashem that the parnasah, that our livelihood should be close to town. Shetiyeh parnasatenu krova la'ir. Otherwise, it could be, of course, you will find your livelihood, you will find a job, but where will this job be? You have to travel every day 50 miles in every direction. Yes, it's a good paying job, but is it really good that you have to travel so much, stuck in traffic? So not everyone has a blessing of having or being able to walk to your job site. Imagine you can walk. It's a block away, it's 2 blocks away. That's beautiful. Not everybody has that. But at the very least, a few minutes away. So people are going to ask me, but what can we do? No one has such a job. I mean, it's not so easy to get such a job. You have to pray. You have to ask for it. Imagine if you pray as follows: God, if you give me my livelihood in 3 hours instead of 8 hours, I promise you that in the other 5 hours, I will sit and learn. I will say Tehilim. I will help my wife. I will take my kids to school. I will help the poor. I'll do good things. I'm not going to watch TV. I'm not going to do things that are useless. I'm going to use my time wisely, productively. Maybe that kind of a prayer will be answered. I told you, I believe several times, there's someone in Jerusalem who sells eyeglasses in Mea Shearim. He has a sign open from 5 to 8 in the afternoon. That's all. He's only open for 3 hours. He learns the rest of the day. And guess what happens? All of his customers come to him during those 3 hours and he makes his livelihood. Why should he be open the whole day? And look at the walls. Now, even though it's true that if you're sitting in the store and there are no customers, you can say Tehilim, you could learn the Torah and so forth. It's true, but there's always phone calls and people are interrupted and there's noise and passerbys. It is possible to earn your living even in 5 minutes. 5 minutes you can earn your living. How's that? Well, depending, of course, on the nature of the business. But this is one of my favorite examples. Let's say you're a jeweler and you have a 12-carat diamond. Now this 12-carat diamond is canary yellow and clean. It's expensive, right? How long will it take you to sell it? It may be a year. Now, there aren't too many customers who are looking for that kind of a stone or can afford it. It could also take you 5 minutes if you get the right buyer. By the way, I'm looking for this stone. Would you happen to have that? I said, of course. And in 5 minutes, the profit that he made on this big stone is at the very least, for 6 months or for an entire year or more, that he can survive, pay his bills, and so forth. 5 minutes, that's all it took. But that's the nature of that business. Everything is possible, but we have to ask for that. If you do ask, just make sure, what are you going to do with all that free time? Otherwise, the prayer is not going to be as powerful. So in this verse, that's what he's saying. What are you going to gain? If you think on your own, from your own ishtadlut, your own effort, you're going to make more money if you're going to take 3 jobs, Shav lachem, it's a waste of time. It's all in vain. To rise early, to sit up late. What kind of a life are you going to have? Verse Gimel 3. Hine nachlat Adonai banim sachar pri habatim. Behold, the heritage of Hashem. The heritage, or you could also translate as the inheritance of Hashem, is children. The fruit of the womb is a reward. So here is talking about what is a real reward, what is a real inheritance. Children. Not money, not real estate. If you leave behind children, good children, then that is something worth it. That is something special. You know how many people invest in having the latest car, Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, all the expensive ones? For that they have money, but for a Jewish education they don't have. And because they don't want to spend it, they do have. They don't want to spend it, they send the kids to a public school where they're not going to pick up the right values, where they may, God forbid, end up on drugs. I mean, that's what goes on these days in such schools. But for himself, for his own selfish needs, he spends on a car and all the other toys and vanities in life. Nachalat Hashem is banim. Remember, the real nachalat, the real inheritance is children. That's where you should invest. But what does it mean that it's an inheritance? It's not only that you leave behind, hopefully, good representatives of yours when you leave this world. That's also true, but it's also, ultimately, this is the reward from Hashem. Don't assume that if you get married, you're going to have kids. It's sachar, it's a reward. Pri habatim, the fruit of the womb is a reward. Hashem can give it or not give it. But why does he make a distinction between children and the fruit of the womb? Some might say, oh, he's just repeating himself. But remember what I said before. He doesn't repeat himself. There's always something to learn from every word. The fact that he says the fruit of the womb means something else. What we're talking about over here is not just children, we're talking about the quality children. What kind of a child you will have is also significant. That's a reward from above. That will depend on one's deeds. Did he sanctify himself? How did he treat his spouse? Is it an abusive relationship? Well, if it's an abusive relationship, the children that come out, that are born, forget about how they grow up. That's a different story. Even from day one, the soul that enters that physical body, that embryo, is not going to be the highest quality soul. In order to receive that reward of the fruit of the womb, you need to merit it. You need to conduct yourself properly. So here we are talking about the children being a reward, but not just any children, good children. And speaking about children, look at the last two verses of this chapter. Kechitzim biyad gibor ken bnei neorim. Loosely translated like arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of youth. Obviously, having children when you're young, in some ways is better than having them when you're older, when you don't have as much patience to deal with them, to teach them. They are like our arrows in the hands of a mighty man. Because hopefully, if that's when you have them and you have the time to give to them, then you will be able to accomplish a lot. You will be able to give over to them so much that they will grow up, hopefully, to be strong individuals themselves. This is a very challenging life. This is a challenging world where there are many dangers out there. You need to be strong to be able to counter and do battle with the evil inclination. And in order to do so, you have to have an example, a father figurehead, good teachers. And even though Solomon does say you can have children even in your later age, you've had them in your younger age, you got married again, don't be discouraged. Continue to have children, it's a good thing, even your later, because you never know, he says, which child will be better. So, just because you already had them doesn't mean that you should stop. Sometimes it's a good idea to continue. Here, however, the emphasis is on children of youth, because that is the time when one is able to give the most to them. So look at the next pasuk. The next verse says, "Ashrei hagever asher mileh et hashpato mehem lo yevoshu ki yidabru et oivim b'shahar." So since we're talking about the importance of having children, he says, "Fortunate is the man who has his quiver full of them." You know what a quiver is? That's where you put the arrows. It's like a bag. Fortunate is the man who has many such arrows in his quiver. They will not find themselves shamed when they speak with their enemies in public places. These last words are a little bit perplexing. What does it mean that they will not find themselves shamed? The Kabbalah explains this verse as follows. You fill your quiver with children, you leave behind kids who will continue to be your representative in this world. When a person leaves this world and goes to heaven, hopefully, what will be there upstairs will depend to some extent on what he left behind here. Even though he no longer can do anything for himself, his children could. If those children misbehave, it pains him greatly. It gives him trouble. He's not completely severed his relationship with this world. So leaving behind kids could be good or not, depending what kind of kids they are. So fortunate is the man who filled his quiver with kids, who left behind good kids, obviously. Because these kids will not find themselves shamed when they speak. It's an expression of kids who can defend themselves, speak for themselves, can act accordingly. But who will they speak with when they speak with enemies in public places? That's also very difficult to understand. What enemies are we talking about? So the rabbis have different interpretations about who these enemies are, but I'm only touching on the Kabbalah right now. The enemy are the accusing angels. One may have left this world with unfinished business. He committed certain sins he never atoned for, he never repented, never did teshuvah. And now what? What is he going to do for himself? He's left unfinished business. If he has children who are going to say Kaddish, They're going to learn in his memory. They're going to give charity in his name. All of that will help. They will be able to speak with the enemies of man, meaning the accusing angels. They will be able to help their dad, who can no longer do anything for himself. So I prefer just to use this interpretation than to go into other ideas that the rabbis say can apply here as well. Bashar in public places means, of course, when a person reaches the shar, the gate of heaven, according to this Kabbalistic interpretation. So what we see from this is, look how good kids can make a big difference. While one is alive, obviously he will derive the nachat, the happiness and satisfaction of seeing them do the right thing. They are the continuation. And of course, they will help him in the afterlife as well. Chapter 128, Kuf Chav Chet. The Sibula for this chapter is a Shemirah as well, but this time it's for a Me'uberet, a woman who's pregnant. Shir HaMa'alot Ashrei Kol Yirei Adonai Ha'olech Bidrachav. This is a beautiful chapter describing a God-fearing person, what he gains from being God-fearing. So a song of ascents, fortunate is every man who fears Hashem, who walks in his ways. Well, we know somewhat what fear of God means. But what does it mean that he walks in his ways? You have people who fear God, which means that they never commit an offense. They're really careful not to commit a sin. They stay out of trouble. They're watchful. But the big mala, the big virtue over here is that they walk in his ways, in the ways of Hashem. Hashem wants us to adopt, to emulate him. He's compassionate. We should also be compassionate. He's Rahum, V'chanun, Erech Apayim, Rav Chesed Emet, all of these qualities that we say in our prayer. He's merciful, he's tolerant, he's forgiving, he's patient. This is the way we need to act with people. This is the way we should interact with others, by following or emulating his ways. So fortunate is a person who can do that. In other words, he adopts all the good qualities that are described in the Torah, which Hashem has. What does this do for him? You may ask. This is the way a man completes himself. This is how he refines himself and reaches the greatest heights he can possibly reach while he's alive. Besides observance of the mitzvot, which is incumbent upon all of us, people can reach different heights, different levels of spirituality, depending on how they interact with others. You can do the bare minimum, or you can do more. That, of course, will determine how large the share of the world to come will be. Pasuk Bet, Yegia katpecha ki tochel ashrecha v'tov lach. When you eat of the labor of your hands, Yegia katpecha, you will be happy, and you will have goodness. Here the rabbis explain, David HaMelech is describing the benefits of working, earning a living, and not having to depend on the handouts of people. It is shameful. As long as you're healthy and you can work for a living, do so. Don't depend on people. Yegia kapecha. You're going to enjoy it a lot more. For your own benefit, he says. For your own benefit. Kitochel. You will be able to enjoy it. You will be happy. And you will have goodness. The rabbis tell us, what does that mean? Happy and goodness. Happy in this world and goodness in the world to come too. Why? In the world to come? Yes, because when you earn a living yourself, you work hard for a living, hopefully you will be content with what you earned, and you will not come to sin and be jealous of others. This particular verse is telling us to focus on whatever Hashem has sent us. As long as we did our best to work and to earn a living, focus on the fact that this is what Hashem wants me to have, and I'm not going to aim to try to get motarot, all of these excesses that people have, and live a materialistic type of life. I will be content with the little bit I have, because this is what I earned, this is what I earned through my hard work, through my own effort, and in this way, I will have it good, by not having to ask for favors, not having to be embarrassed by people refusing to help, and I will have it good in the world to come because I will stay away from trouble. Apparently, there is some benefit when people work hard for themselves. They have this greater respect, perhaps, for every dollar they made. You know, they're not going to gamble, they're not going to throw it away. People who get money from others very easily, whether through legal ways or illegal ways, they don't value that money as much. They may be very, perhaps, appreciative of the favor that they got, but they don't necessarily have all that respect for that money. It's the money that you earned, that you worked hard for, that you respect more, that you watch over it. And that's why one will benefit in this world and in the afterlife as a result of his own effort in making the money. This particular midah, this particular quality, helps also in the midah of bitachon, to have faith in God, to trust in God that He will provide for you. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're getting accustomed to relying on people, on human beings, which is not a good idea either. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to stay away from that if you can. Sometimes we need favors from people. There's nothing wrong with that. But to do that as a habit, to not want to work at all, to just depend on people, that's not good. Pasuk Gimel, verse 3, Eshtecha kegefen poriya be'erketei betecha banecha keshtelei zetim savim shulchanecha. One of the most beautiful verses that is known to many. We find this verse in the Siddur as well. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine. In the inner chambers of your house, your children will be like olive saplings around your table. It's a beautiful blessing. So first the wife is compared to a fruitful vine. Well, that's good. Fruitful, that means hopefully she will have children. She will be blessed with children. But what kind of children makes a difference? Your children will be like olive saplings around your table. So we have here two descriptions: olive saplings and around your table. Olive is special. You will be able to extract good oil. In other words, you will have nahat. You will see, hopefully, your kids grow up and be successful, that they, as adults, will also contribute to society in some meaningful way. Olive oil, something special and precious. The olive, however, the rabbis tell us, is also unique in that you cannot graft with it another fruit from another tree. It does not accept grafting. It doesn't work with it in the same way as it works with other trees. So your kids will be pure. There will be no psolet, no impurities that will stick to them from somewhere else. Saviv le'shulchanecha. Today, not every parent can claim my kids are sitting around my table when I sit down and eat dinner. When does it happen? Hopefully, by us, at the very least, on Shabbat. No one is out at work, and people can hopefully eat at the same time, at the same table. But during the week, it's much more difficult. But those that don't have the Shabbat, or don't have these values, they don't enjoy this. This is a beautiful thing of having your kids around your table. I've seen it, unfortunately, too many times where elderly parents are somewhat abandoned by their kids in an old age home. They barely visit them. Maybe once a year they see them. And those elderly parents are left to just talk to the walls, see TV, and if they're still active, then perhaps they have some friends at this place. It's not a good feeling. Now, if the parent does need help, that's a different story. But if they don't need that much help, if they can be around a child, that is the best thing for them and for the children and for the grandchildren, to be around their grandfather and the grandmother. If it's at all possible, that is part of the nachat, part of the satisfaction of having 2 or 3 generations, I guess, eating together from time to time and sharing the holidays together Otherwise, there's no connection. So some people, or some cultures, have a lack of sensitivity towards the previous generation. They're not so connected, they don't care. I've seen that a lot in this country. The same is true with kids that have grown up. Once they reach 17 and 18 in this country, they leave the home and they go rent an apartment on their own. You don't see this a lot in America. I've never seen that. A child remains in his parents' home until he gets married. Unless he's in some university, away from home, that's different. I should leave my parents' home. What for? And why waste the money in renting an apartment? Kids, of course, some of them want their independence. They want to be away from their parents. That's not a good sign that you want to be away from them. Unless, of course, it's an abusive father or mother that's being overprotective or telling you what to do, and kids don't like that. But that's what I find the mentality in this country is to, the parents want their privacy. Kid, go find a place on your own, or the child on his own decides to move out. It's strange. Here it's a blessing that they are saviv leshulchanecha, that they are around your table with you. Look at the words, b'yarketei betecha, in this verse, eshtecha kegefen poria b'yarketei betecha. Your wife is like a fruitful vine, we said, in the inner chambers. What's this inner chambers mean? So the rabbis tell us that this is a description not just of a wife that is fruitful, that has children, but that she is modest, she's in the inner chambers. She's not ostentatious, she doesn't show off, she doesn't go in the street and just talk to all the men in the street. She's in the inner chamber, she's modest, not only in her dress, how she dresses, but she doesn't socialize too much. And of course it's important to socialize, for her to have friends and to go out and so forth, but not as a habit. She prefers to be in her home, and she raises her children when they're young. This is a blessing. Some people might think, oh no, that's a curse, I'd love my wife to work as well. Well, sometimes people have to have the two working. You have no choice. But if at all possible, even at work, a woman needs to be very modest. Modesty is a very important idea. So this will affect the type of children she will have, the rabbis tell us. If a woman is modest, she's b'yarketei betecha, she's in the inner chambers of her home, that will hopefully produce this kind of children, kishtilei zetim, like saplings, of olive saplings. They asked once the mother of the Chazon Ish of blessed memory, a great sage, what did you do? What mitzvah did you do? In what merit did you deserve to have such a son, like this great rabbi? So she says that she always was strict about covering her hair, even when they were bathing her. Even when they were bathing her. In those days, they didn't have a shower. You just walk into the shower and take a shower or a bath. You went to a bathhouse, or in this case, somebody came over to your house and water was heated in a bucket, and somehow they made arrangements to pour it over you. I don't know how it worked, but that's how it more or less worked, in a primitive way. So even though she was, of course, being bathed or helped to bathe herself by another woman, she still covered her hair as much as possible during that time. She didn't want to expose her hair. She's a married woman. By Jewish law, a married woman needs to have her head covered, unless, of course, she's taking a bath. Unless she's, in a situation where she's allowed to uncover it, like in a bath. But she was strict, extra strict, that even she was in the process of bathing, she didn't want her hair to be shown. It could be that that merit, she got this kind of a son who was a great rabbi. All of that is seen in this verse. Next verse, Dalet, Yinekechen yevorach gave yirei Adonai. So the whole soul will be blessed, the man who fears Hashem. One who fears Hashem will get all these blessings. Now what kind of blessings will he receive? If you look at the last two verses of this chapter, you will notice that there's three areas that are covered. Rabbis tell us the three areas are B'nei Hayu Mezoneh. children, long life, livelihood. Now these three areas, the rabbis tell us in the Gemara, that really do not depend on one's merit. They depend on one's mazal. As the rabbis tell us, "La b'zchut atalya milta, ela b'mazala dela'ela." They don't depend on how righteous one is. Whether he will have the children, whether he will have livelihood, parnasah, or how long he will live. All of that does not necessarily depend on his merits. Now, how he is, they depend on his mazal. Everybody's born with a mazal. All right. However, even though that's true, we do believe in mazal, there is something called beracha, a blessing. A blessing can change things. Just like prayer is powerful, that can change one's mazal. Repentance can change. Charity can change. So can a beracha. One who received the beracha from a great saint. Or, of course, Hashem directly blesses him because he did something very special. That's why he begins to tell us that this is how a God-fearing person will be blessed. God-fearing, in other words, he will be blessed. He will receive, even though his mazal is not like that. He, according to the mazal, would not have had all of that, but because he's God-fearing, he's extra careful in how he conducts himself. It could be in that merit alone he will be blessed. And that is what you see in verse Hey and Vav. Hey, Yivarechcha Adonai mitzion ur'eh betuv Yerushalayim kol yemei chayecha. May Hashem bless you of Zion, and may you see the goodness of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Even though, by the way, this verse can also be addressing the Jewish people, that they will hopefully come back to their land, and they will be blessed from Zion, meaning that they will be back in Israel. Ur'eh betuv Yerushalayim, that they will see the goodness of Jerusalem, which is a description of one being very, very complete in his connection, in his bond with the Almighty. So much so that he will see betuv, he will see the goodness of Jerusalem after Mashiach has arrived. In other words, since he actually feared God and did his best in observing the mitzvot, he will be blessed mitzion. In this case, either it's talking to the Jewish people and that they will be in their land, or it could be talking to an individual, that the beracha will come from Zion, because the Zohar says that all the blessings come from there, from Zion. So in other words, he will receive a blessing directly from Hashem. And that blessing will cover all those areas of his life that I mentioned, including Betuv Yerushalayim, which is the goodness of Jerusalem, meaning that he will complete himself, he will reach tremendous heights, spiritual heights. Kol yemei chayecha, all his life. This particular blessing here, the Betuv Yerushalayim Kol yemei chayecha, is a description of when a Jew has formed a strong relationship with Hashem. He has reached a certain height, a certain level, through his maaseh, through his deeds. So even though a lot of people do a lot of good deeds, they're not necessarily blessed that Hashem elevates them to greater heights during their lifetime. Perhaps they will get that in the world to come. To get all that blessing in this world, where all of a sudden, imagine, he's able to gain greater insight into the Kabbalah. Some people have had that. So that all of that is insinuated in this verse. And the last one, verse Vav, Ur'eh banim levanecha, shalom in Israel. And may you see children born to your children, then there will be peace upon Israel. So here it's talking about future generations, descendants, which is also part of having the nachat, that you're able to see more and more generations who hopefully will be doing the right thing, going in your footsteps. But why does he add the words Shalom al Israel? So since we're talking about the Jewish people as well, we're not just talking about future generations, descendants, we're talking about children that will not have to go through war. Part of the beracha is therefore having those children, having those grandchildren, who hopefully will not have to deal with a struggle of any kind. That is why there's an emphasis, Shalom al Israel. Not only will you have them, they will be in peace. Before we go into the next chapter, it's important that we understand why there's an emphasis here on future generations. It's definitely beautiful for a person to be a great-great-grandfather, yes. If you can enjoy all of them. I've heard of grandmothers or great-grandmothers who knew the birthday of every grandson and every great-grandson. Perhaps it's very nice. Old age, enjoying all the kids. Of course, being healthy enough to be able to enjoy them. But there's something else over here. Here we're talking about a real blessing. What's a real blessing? So let's not forget what we said before. A real blessing is not just having the kids, it's the quality of children. What kind of kids will come out? And there's a beautiful mashal that explains this very, very well. There was once a gentleman who was walking in the desert. The desert is very hot. And finally he sees in the distance a beautiful tree. Great, I'm going to have shade. And he goes under the tree and he sees that there's fruits. Great. He enjoys the shade, he enjoys the fruit. And there's even water, a stream next to it. So he's enjoying himself, he's so glad that he found this tree. He's about to leave. And he says, Ilan ilan bama avarechecha. Such a beautiful tree, how can I bless you? What blessing can I give you? Shade, you have beautiful shade. Fruit, they're so sweet. What can I bless you? What can I give you that you don't have? May it be that all the fruits that you produce should produce fruits like the original ones. That all the plantings that come from this tree that will be reseeded, regrown elsewhere, should resemble the parent tree. That all the offsprings that came from this tree should be like the original. That is a beautiful blessing. That is why he emphasizes this towards the end. That the children and the children's children should continue to be a source of nachat, a source of happiness and satisfaction to the parents, even when they're already no longer alive. Because upstairs they're still aware. There's still some awareness of what's going on here. So if the kids emulate and walk in the footsteps of their parents and grandparents, if those are quality children, that is the ultimate blessing. Not money, not any other material acquisition. Good children. We have to pray for this, by the way. This is not something that we need to assume. Okay, the father's a good father, the mother's a good mother, the kids will be good. No, don't make any such assumptions. We've heard of all kinds of stories. In the best of families, some kids are not so good. And sometimes the opposite. Bad families, broken homes, and the children that came out became very, very strong, very devoted, and led exemplary lives. Okay, usually that doesn't happen because obviously what they see in the home is what they follow. So one needs to pray. So when we pray, have this in mind as well. Good children. All our mothers and grandmothers in the past, when they lit the candles for Shabbat, that's what they asked for. They gave some charity before they lit the candle, and they started praying. What is a mother going to pray for during that time, very sensitive time? They pray that their children should remain Jewish, that they should have a happy marriage, a good life, that they should be healthy, that they should only bring honor to the family. I don't know if I told you this, but there was a gentleman in this community. He already passed away. That him and his father were in a concentration camp. And the father was about to be taken to the gas chamber. And eventually he was going to be cremated. He knew that. And the son still had a chance of survival. What can a father say in that 1 minute that's left? What can he tell his son? He told his son in Yiddish, just make sure, shame mich nicht. Don't embarrass me. When you live your life wherever you will be, just make sure you don't shame me. You don't bring shame to me. In the afterlife, that's what parents hopefully want to see, is that their kids, the children are doing the right thing, that they only bring honor and married to their parents, not shame, God forbid. So that's why quality children is something that one needs to pray for. Kuf Chaftet, chapter 129. The segula for this chapter is to say this chapter when you're about to do some mitzvah. I guess in order for the mitzvah to come out right, for one to be successful, this chapter is good for that. Shir HaMa'alot Rabat Seraruni Mineorai Yomarna Yisrael. A song of ascents. Much have they persecuted me from my youth on. Let Israel declare it now. This is a description of the pain and suffering that the Jewish people underwent from the very beginning until Mashiach comes. They've gone through a lot. They are able to recall everything that has happened to them, so when will this be? Right before Mashiach. Rabat seraru mineorai gam lo yachluli. Much have they persecuted me from my youth on, but they have not prevailed against me. Where is that? That's from the time of Yaakov and Esav, from my youth. From the very, very beginning of the formation of the Jewish people, there's already trouble. But they did not prevail upon me. In the end, Hashem protected us. Why talk about this? David HaMelech is reminding the Jewish people that, look, this is part of our fate. It begins tough, it begins in a very hard way, but it ends good. It ends good. It begins hard, but it ends good. Whereas with others, it may begin very good and look positive, but it ends bad for them. So this is the way it will be. It began in a difficult way, but it will end well. Verse 3, the plowman plowed upon my back, they wished to make their furrow long. This is also a description of how much pain they had to endure. They plowed upon me, in other words, one after another. And it lasted for a long time. They wished to make their furrow long. In other words, the furrow is what the ox will plow through. So usually there is a certain distance it has to go. They wanted to extend it. In other words, one after another, the pain didn't stop. They plowed upon my back. In other words, we felt it. We felt it very, very much. How they hated us and they went after us. So what happens at the end? Adonai tzaddik kitzetz avot reshaim. Hashem is just that He cut the cords of the lawless, of the evil. He cut it? Yeah. He put a stop to it. When will that happen? When Mashiach comes. Obviously that's when He will put a complete stop to it. But before that, He allowed them to do all that harisha, all that plowing. And not only did He allow that to go on, He let them, He let them even extend the furrow. What for? Why did He make it more difficult? Especially if Mashiach is coming now. If anything, it should be less and less and less. Now make it longer, now make it more difficult and painful. So there's a beautiful mashal that I like to tell of a widower who wanted to marry a widow. She was available and he was available. But he had one condition for her. She owed a lot of money to many businesses. And she had a problem, she had a habit of not paying, pushing them off. He said, listen, I'd love to marry you, and I'm sure you do too, but that's my condition. You have to pay up your debts before we get married. She said yes, okay, but she never did. Every time somebody came to collect, the check is in the mail. She always pushed them off. And the man saw that if he just lets her do this, they will never get married. And here's a wealthy man who can provide for her and take care of her. And he doesn't understand why she just doesn't get rid of the debt. He doesn't want to wait. So what does he do? He came up with a plan. He made a meeting. He called for a meeting in his home. All those that she owes money to, they all came together and he told them, this is the plan. Tomorrow you're all together going to gang up on her, come at the same time to her house and demand to be paid on the spot. And sure enough, that's what they did. And she had no choice. She paid them all off on the spot. They got married. They're in their honeymoon. And the man tells her, I have something to reveal to you. You know, when they came to collect the money, those people that you owed money to, it was my idea. I'm the one that sent them. So she became all of a sudden upset. It was your fault. Why did you do that? She says, I wanted to get married. Isn't that more important than anything else? And I know you wanted it too. But if I left it for you to decide, it would never happen. I had to therefore take the initiative. But in the end, it paid off, right? We got married. Hashem wants us to do teshuvah. He wants us to pay off our debts, but we haven't been paying them. We haven't been doing teshuvah. And Hashem says, I want to get married to you. I want to get back to you. But if I wait for you, it's never going to happen. So I'm going to make all those people that you owe money to gang up on you. And you're going to suffer. You're going to go through this pain and suffering all at once, one after another. But in the end, it's for your own good. So that's why at some point Hashem says, I want to be kitzetz avot reshaim. I want to cut the cord. Once I cut the cord, that cow, that bull will no longer plow the field. Right? It will stop. And when that happens, Yevoshu v'yisogu achor kol sonei Tzion. They will be humiliated and will be turned back, all the haters of Tzion. Of course, they will see that Hashem is back with us. It's a little bit hard to understand, but what that means is they will be as grass upon the rooftops that withers before one plucks it. Wherewith the reaper has never filled his hand, nor the sheaf binder his arm. This is all a description that even though they may be on top, on the roof, but they are like grass. What will happen to that grass if it's on the roof? It will wither. Before you even have a chance to pluck it, before you have a chance to fill your hand, in other words, the reaper, the one who's filling up, who's gathering up, before you even have a chance to benefit from all of that, your time will come. You will wither. You will be put to shame. He's talking about the enemies of Hashem. That's what's going to happen. They will be humiliated when Hashem cuts the cord and stops all that pain. They will not be able to continue. And they will not be able to have any benefit for a long time. It will be like grass that had withered before you even had a chance to collect it. It will be so fast, Pasuk Chet, and of which the passerby never would have said, the blessing of God be upon you, we bless you in the name of God. In other words, usually when people see you're doing well, the grass is growing, you can have a nice harvest, they give you a blessing. They will not even say that blessing. They will not even have a chance when they see our success to even bless us and wish us well, because they're going to disappear. In other words, all of this is going to happen so fast that they won't even have a chance to, yes, congratulations on the third temple. Congratulations on coming back to Israel. Congratulations on witnessing all the prophecies being fulfilled. They won't even have a chance to even say that. Chapter 130. This is an important chapter. The segula for this chapter is, if you want to make the officers fall asleep, you're afraid of certain people that are watching you. This apparently has some power for that. Shir ha'ma'alot mima'amakim kiraticha Adonai, a song of ascents. Out of the depths I call to you, Hashem. Out of the depths, meaning that our prayers, if they are going to be effective, needs to come from the depths of our hearts. That's one idea behind mima'amakim. It can also mean from the depths of the exile. Because our tradition is when the Jewish people are at the depths, at the lowest point, that is when Mashiach will come. So therefore we want to pray to him, we want to call out to him at that point. God, hearken to my voice, let your ears be attentive to the sound of my pleas. So we have voice and we have pleas. Voice, even though we don't really know how to pray, perhaps we don't even deserve it, but at least we cry out. So listen to the cry, listen to the voice. Or it could be that we may reach the point where we will plead. So be attentive to the sound of my pleas, even though we may still have sins on our record, but we're pleading with you. Because if you just keep the sins recorded and you don't erase them or atone for them, if you preserve our iniquities, who could survive? I mean, everybody makes mistakes and everybody could have done something wrong once upon a time. So if you preserve them and you don't forgive them, who could survive? There will always be an accusation against us. We will never come out of it. So therefore, we're asking for Hashem's forgiveness. And what's the benefit of that forgiveness? Forgiveness is with you, that you may be held in awe. The fact that we know that you can forgive us, the fact that you do so is to our advantage, because this is the only way that we can cleanse ourselves. And as a result of that, we will have awe for you. We will be fearful of you. We will realize that we depend on your forgiveness. We will therefore turn to you. So this we know, and this is a good thing, hopefully, that we know. Pasuk Hey, kivita noi kivita nafshi v'lidvaro achalti. I hope in Hashem, my soul hopes, and I long for His word. This is reminding us to always have hope. And even though things may not have turned out the way we wanted, we need to continuously hope in Him and trust in Him and never give up, never despair. My soul yearns for Hashem more than those who are waiting the morning or wait for the morning. In other words, we have so much trust in Hashem, much more so than those that are looking forward to the day. Those that are watching at night, the day is coming soon, the night's going to be over. We have greater clarity and more trust in Hashem than these individuals. Now that is how much we're longing and waiting or yearning, because we know for a fact that Mashiach is going to come. So it's a description of those that do have the bitachon. This is the kind of trust that they should have. Israel, put your hope in God, for with God there is kindness, and with Him there is abounding deliverance. Even though we may not have all the merits, nonetheless put your hope in Him. Why? Because Hashem has chesed, Hashem is kind. And He also has abounding deliverance. He has demonstrated this in the past. He has proven that He can deliver you in all kinds of situations. Read the history books, and you will hopefully be strengthened in your faith and trust in Hashem. And He will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. That is what will happen in the end. Right before Mashiach comes, He will redeem us, but prior to redeeming us, He will forgive us. In order for the redemption to come, forgiveness has to occur. How does He do so? He will increase it, just like in Egypt. Moshe was puzzled. Why are you increasing their labor now? Why are you making it more difficult for you? You said you're going to take them out. Now you're making them fetch all that hay to make bricks on their own. And why make it harder now? You said you're going to take them out. Hashem says, yeah, but this is the way I'm going to take them out. I'm going to increase it. I'm going to increase the pain. There was a Holocaust. It was very painful. But this is the biggest sign, the biggest indicator that Hashem is bringing us out of the Galut. The fact that He's bringing about the Geulah is a fact. But in order for it to be done properly, He's going to increase the pain. And that pain is going to be for the purpose of atoning us of all our sins. B'ezrat Hashem. Amen.